Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think we are here basically to demonstrate what works and what doesn't work. But primarily, the presentations we've made today, and this will be followed up by our Honorable Deputy Minister this afternoon in the ecosystem, in the economics of land degradation. She's a keynote speaker. But you see, what will run through the two presentations as a key message is that we need to mainstream these conventions. It's about mainstreaming. There must be some synergies. If you can't implement one convention, even if if you think it's a success, if the other one is not a success, then you got a failure as a result. So that's basically the presentation today, and the case studies that we were showing there through the Drylands Fund, and the case studies on the Working for Water program, the Working on Fire program, the Land Care program, the National Greening program, and the Community-Based Natural Resource Management program, and all the others. They are just basically to show that, one, you need partnerships, and these conventions, you need to have them to be implemented in a synergistic manner.
It seems from someone like me who's not really an expert at any of these conferences, but it seems that this conference in many ways is a climate adaptation conference, because we are looking at opportunities, we're looking at ways of dealing with land degradation and the effects of climate change and adapting to those.
Yes, I would say that why do we need biodiversity? We need biodiversity as an adaptation strategy to climate change. We need a biodiversity because when it's about ecosystem resilience, and we need food. It's about food security and all those aspects. So that's why I think we think as South Africa that there's no way you can implement one convention without aligning those efforts to the other. And this then brings me to the issue of targets that we are discussing, that we adopted in Nagoya. Because if you look at, for example, target number 7 and target number 15, one of those is talking strongly about, well, agriculture, all right, restoration, and all those things. So we're talking about issues that should actually be aligned. Otherwise, it's a failure from the word go.
Is there a danger in international talks to set too many targets and then people hold their hands in the air when they're not achieved?
Well, it's not a danger to be over-ambitious, because we're dealing with a global issue here, and we know that we're just on the edge of what they call the tipping point. I mean, that report on the TIB report, the ecosystem whatever report, and all the other reports from IUCN, and even that one that was produced by the climate change family of people. It shows that we're actually on the tipping point with biodiversity. So it's not bad to agree as a community of nations to set an ambitious targets. The same is not bad to provide commensurate enough resources to implement these targets. That's why these discussions must be harmonized. You cannot have a situation where one bus has left, that's the target. The targets were adopted in Nagoya and they're going, and then the resources are not coming through, and it's 2 years later we are still talking about processes and reporting. You don't even, how do you report on something that has not even been implemented? You have not even funded it. It's not possible. So what I'm trying to say is that the UNCCD has its own strategy, the 10-year strategy and framework. All of those things, if you look at them, at the end of the day, the bottom line is that we must adapt to climate change and also achieve sustainable development.
And the South African Environment Ministry has played a massive role in international talks over the past year, obviously a part at the COP17 talks in Durban. What kind of leadership role are you offering at these talks in Hyderabad?
Well, we have political leadership. I think we have 2 ministers and 1 deputy minister that have come from various ministries. One from the environment ministry, water and environment, and in fact, our minister who is here from water and environmental affairs. We have the deputy minister from water and environmental affairs present, and we've got the minister of women affairs and gender mainstreaming. So that tells you how serious South Africa takes these conventions and this forum to try and push an agenda. That's not only good for South Africa or for the Southern African region, not only for Africa or for the developing world, but we're talking for the world at large, because we are a third mega biodiverse country, and we know what we are trying to preserve, not only to meet our development and socio-economic development agenda, but what we are preserving for the world. So that's why these discussions, whether it is in climate change or at the UNCCD convention or the CBD or even the other multilateral environmental agreements, they become very key to us, and we are present and we want to take leadership where we can.
One final question. Many delegations, I suspect most national delegations, will send an environment minister to these talks. But when you look forward, when we talk about development and the environment, can you separate development in a country's economy and the environment? And should there be a point in the future where all countries send their finance minister as well as their environment minister to talks like this?
If you see the successes that are happening in Costa Rica, if I may pick an example, is when different ministers and different departments, different ministries are talking to each other. And that's what one of our programs that we're trying to showcase there is trying to indicate, because we must put a case to the Minister of Finance for the value of biodiversity. For the Minister of Finance to understand the value of biodiversity, you know, the case of biodiversity, it means, or the value of soils or land, he must then also be part, or his people, his team must also be part of what is going on. That's why you see that in the South African delegation, we normally have a hybrid. We've got chief executives from our national parks, from our botanical institute. We've got people from civil society. We've got people from various government departments. We've got foreign affairs here from the foreign affairs. We've got also from the line ministries. That's why we've got even 2 line ministers and 1 deputy line minister. It's also to a deputy minister to make sure that everyone, all of us are on the same page and we're singing from the same songbook, and if possible from the same hymn, isn't it, in that songbook. Then it makes it easier when we put a case for these 3 Rio conventions, then at least National Treasury are able to understand why. And that's why in this one of these examples I've given here, they are able to give 800 million to say, no, implement a green fund as a start-up capital. That is actually goodwill from the ministers of finance, appreciating what the environment and everything else around sustainable development how good that is for all of us. Thank you.
One final question. A lot of the talk today has been about implementation. Braulio Diaz, the Executive Secretary of the CBD, said, my main aim as Executive Secretary is to ensure implementation, but inevitably that comes back to finance. What do you do as developing countries when the people who originally, back in 1992, said we will help fund the transition to a cleaner, greener economy, put their hands up and say, I'm terribly sorry, we've run out of money? Where do we go from there?
Well, it is a given fact that indeed the world has gone into some economic crisis. That is accepted. But what is also another fact is that we are losing biodiversity, we are losing our land, we are losing our soils, and the level of other challenges are escalating. HIV, health issues, HIV and AIDS, hunger, poverty, and all those things are escalating. I think our approach has always been to, as South Africa, is trying to bridge the gap, to try and bring, we can't, the more we say we don't have money and we can do nothing, the problem is going to escalate. So we are going to find ourselves in a vicious cycle of some kind. So our approach to these negotiations has always been to try and find middle ground. Yes, we have a challenge of finances, but at the same time, we also have global challenges that need to be addressed. How then do we get the negotiations to come to a common meeting of minds, so that then within those parameters, within those complexities, within those challenges, whether they're finance or whatever, how can we then begin to address the other challenges that need to be addressed? The pertinent challenges like health, ecosystem degradation, land degradation, and biodiversity loss. How do we halt that? So we have to talk as a community of nations. It's not one person's, one country's effort. No, it is. I know from the South African point of view, and most of the developing countries, and in fact, most of the mega biodiverse countries, we are doing our bit. The money that we ask from our developing developed partners, our donors, cannot even match what we are putting ourselves in conservation. I mean, to preserve this global good. It's not. So we're just saying, please come to the party. Thank you.